I'm Rob. I've been doofing for 30 plus years now and using it as a healthy, sustainable part of my life. What I want to share today is the work that I'm doing at the moment. So I'm blushing already just thinking about it. It's been a really long journey for me of healing mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and I'm still in the middle of the work. So I'm far from healed at the moment. I'm deep in the work and I need this because I'm not quite present yet. So here's a lot of streaming that I've done over the last couple of weeks. And I've got 9 really simple, direct, easy to apply hacks. Yeah. That all of you should be able to pick up on at any time. It's very linear and very simple, very easy to apply. Bear with me. I need my notes for a little while. Okay. I've got written down here, what I'm sharing today speaks from the energy that drives each of our humans. Some call it our heart, our spirit, our inner god or goddess. I call it source. The name is irrelevant, it's just words. So what I'm talking about is what lives within us all and is not necessarily definable. So we can call it whatever each of us wants. What's important is that you try to understand that most of what I'm sharing today comes from me looking at our human condition through that indefinable source and trying to reconnect with who I am beyond this convincing human form. So the work I'm doing at the moment is because I've become very convinced by my human pain and suffering, and I'm reconnecting to what I am beyond that again. And I want to share that with you so that you can do the same this weekend. Okay, one of the most universal aspects of the human condition is suffering. So if I ask the question, who here suffers? Does anyone suffer? Okay, so it is universal, and what makes it worse is that every human I know thinks that our suffering is somehow unique and separate from everybody else's. So that's the thing that makes our suffering the hardest. Not that we actually suffer, but we believe we're separate in our suffering. So I know that everybody recognizes that in yourselves. We all feel it in a different way, and we all think that our suffering is what makes us separate to everybody else. It's actually what connects us. I'm calling this, in this talk, I'm calling that suffering society's outdated code. So it's part of the human condition. It's built into us through our society. It's not something that we come into with spirit. It's something that's trained into us. That's why I went with the hacks. So every single human I know has this code written in. We think the way we personally suffer makes us somehow irredeemably unlovable, so we each hold back our suffering in the hope of being loved for it. It's wired into our society's code. The weak get left behind as the nomads move on. And that's left us with really outdated code that drives our beliefs. So before we had nice stable homes, we lived as a herd and we moved. And the weak would get left behind if they couldn't fend for themselves. We've still got that code written into our current society. So we believe we have to be strong all the time if we're going to be accepted by the tribe. I've got the words here. Nobody will accept me because I'm too something or because I'm not something enough. And I know that everyone here has their own version of that. Yeah, they are the beliefs that are passed down in our society's outdated code. Our parents had it passed on to them, and they unknowingly passed it on to us. Their grandparents passed on to them. So this is society that we're talking about here. And when I'm saying code, it's our programming that makes us believe that there's not enough for us and that we're not enough or too much. I've got the old line here, hurt people hurt people. It's hiding from our suffering that keeps us hurting. So I want you to hear that. It's hiding from our suffering that keeps us hurting. So we believe our suffering makes us separate, so we hide it so that the herd will love us. It just doesn't work that way. Who here has been hurt by people who were suffering? Okay, again, it's really universal, so hurt people hurt people. So hack 1 is actually sharing our suffering. It's actually sharing our suffering, and it's such a counterintuitive thing. Society's code says, don't show other humans how hard your life is. It makes you weak and you'll be rejected by society. What I've done past writing this is, since I've been a dragon, I've connected with society's code. We understand that already as our programming and fear. And I'm using the term source code. So what comes from our spirit. And what I call source code is just a really simple word for whatever we know is actually right beyond what society's code is telling us to do. So what believing our suffering makes us weak does is makes us push our suffering down. When we do that, it comes out in ways that cause more suffering. It's actually opening up about our pain, our sadness, our fears that creates the most loving bonds with humans. It's a big part of how we heal, and I'm doing it now. The outdated nomadic code still makes us want to hide our humans' feelings. Most of the time, human suffering comes down to ignoring our humans' needs or feelings because of what we were told to believe. So I want you to hear that statement for the simple thing that it actually is. Most of our suffering comes down to ignoring our humans' needs or feelings because of what our humans were told to believe. So it's not what we necessarily believe, but it's what we've been told and how we're supposed to be. This suffering can simply be labeled codependency. And in my mind, that means believing that if we put our needs aside and meet another's needs, that will lead to our needs being met by them. And again, I can't stress the significance of this. So we have a belief built into us that if we put our needs aside and meet another's needs, that will lead to our needs being met by them. Everybody I know does this. This is a universal thing that's built into our society's code. I've got written here one word, attachment, which means to me fear, or the opposite of being present, and stretched between the past and the future. So I'm not quite present at the moment. I'm still stuck in the pain of the past and hoping for a better future. And that's my suffering at the moment that I came here to share with you today. We're trained to believe that hiding our needs and feelings will somehow lead to them being taken care of by others. And again, it's outdated code in our society. When others don't meet our needs, we end up with hurt feelings, confused why the code betrays us when it's what we were taught would lead to love. To me, that's attachment. So we're told that if you just do this thing where you put your needs aside, you'll get them met by society. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't actually work like that. So we end up in a lot of pain and disappointed because the way we were told things are going to work out doesn't work out. This talk looks at how this plays out in humans and looks at simpler ways, like understanding our own feelings and needs and actioning behaviors to meet them. I've got some notes here. Give me a second. I'll leave that out. Okay. So, in the previous relationship that I had, my own codependency had me hiding my own suffering from my partner so that she would feel more comfortable about her own. It didn't really work out that way. She's still uncomfortable with hers, even though I put mine aside in the hope that she'll feel comfortable with hers. So we're taught to believe that we can influence other people by pretending, and it doesn't work out. It can be sustainable for a very short period of time, but it doesn't work out over the long term. So again, we all believe if we hide parts of ourselves we were told to feel shame about, then somehow we'll end up receiving the love we couldn't get as children. And that's a really significant transition in this talk to understanding that the love that we're looking for as adults is the love that we couldn't get as children. So many humans go their whole lives without ever questioning this code. And that's hack 2. Question everything other humans taught you growing up. Every human I know has beliefs that were taught growing up that conflict with their needs and feelings, and that's what we're calling today the outdated code. My mum installed this code. Just be nice to people and they'll love you. That's the core of my operating system of my human's mind, is just be nice to people and they will love me. My brain, in my previous relationships, just keep loving her in her pain. She'll come around. This time will be different. She's got a good heart. I see the light in her, blah, blah, blah. I was not noticing the massive damage that I've done by abandoning my own suffering to soothe partners in theirs. And it's a really big deal. So many times I'd soothe partners until they were feeling past all their outdated code, and the space we shared when we were both tuned into source was truly divine. So there is some small short-term benefits for doing this. You can end up with a brief connection, but it's still not sustainable until you're doing it together. Okay. Now, So we're on hack 2, question everything other humans taught you growing up. And I just want to highlight these words here. Please work with a therapist. I've spent decades working with really good therapists to just understand what happened to this little human growing up. Okay? So the things that got imprinted on this little human before he even knew he was a human. Working with a therapist has been like having a map in the darkness and having someone ask me the right questions to lead me in a direction every time I'm lost. Yep. I realized recently with my psych that my mum chose to spend her energy taking care of dysfunctional partners instead of me as a kid. So that little human there, if you look at his eyes, he's got a little bit of worry in him already. He's cute, he's very happy, but he's got a bit of worry in him already. And that's, I'm not going to get cared for, so I need to behave a certain way in the hope that I'll be cared for. And the way to behave is to put my needs aside and look after everybody else. So I'm speaking from my version, but this is something that I know is installed in every human that I've ever spoken to. Okay, questioning the beliefs that tell me I'm not deserving of love unless I'm being selfless helps my humans see how hollow they are. So we all know that we're deserving of love, but we all believe that there's reasons that we're not deserving. And I'm saying, had to question everything other humans taught you growing up. We need to look at how we've been programmed to believe that we're not worthy of love in a really simple way. Okay. Hack 3 is figure out what your childhood led you to believe is fundamentally wrong with your human. So we're taking hack 2 and we're expanding on it a little bit, and we're looking at what was coded in us, why we're absolutely not deserving of love. Again, do family of origin work with a therapist while you're young, unpack your operating system, do it. Both my daughters are in therapy and it's amazing for them at 25. I didn't do it till I was 35 and it was such hard work. Okay, so think of therapy as a place where you can go and figure out all the answers to the questions that you have no idea what the answers look like. So it's just a person there asking you better questions than you would normally ask yourself so you can find the answers you need. I call my inner child, him, Little Bobby. That was the name I had growing up, and it still sits really comfortably with me. Through therapy, I learned Little Bobby was taught that he'd never be responsible enough. Thanks, Mum. And never be masculine enough, thanks, Terry, to be deserving of love. So in my brain, I'm constantly filtering, am I being responsible enough? Do I appear masculine enough? And there's never enough. That's because of the way my brain was wired as a child. My relationship with the masculine is mostly healed, and I've done that talk before, it was epic. So I want to lay my suffering with the feminine bare today. It's my current work. So Frida, that's my mother, had little Bobby when she was 18, so she wasn't prepared in any way. She assigned him the role of man of the house at 2 years old, and he looked after the girls. That was what responsibility meant to that little human. That was being responsible. Unfortunately, so in essence, to be worthy of love, I needed to be dad to my sister and partner to my mum. And energetically, that's the role I took on. I had very little actual childhood. Unfortunately, that severed my connection to my own needs and feelings because I was told they were selfish and that was the opposite of responsible. So there's a really simple feedback loop there that whenever my needs actually came in as a kid, I was being told that that's not right. It's not supposed to be like that. So I'm no longer worthy of love for just saying, I've got feelings. So here's this little human trying to figure out, add to that, Terry taught my human to believe that not maintaining a traditional masculine facade made little Bobby unlovable. But that is another talk. So here's this little human trying to figure out how to human with misguided, conflicting code from his guides. I've wavered in and out of codependence relating since. So I'm only now redoing this work. I've done this work already and I'm having to redo it again because I fell into the same traps. Basically, I hope that if I squish down my pain and my needs as well as hide the beautiful goddesses in me, then I'll somehow get the love I've always wished for. It's very outdated code, and I know that all of us have it in ourselves. We've all got our own version of this. Please ask yourself what your version is. It's important work. So for me, understanding that I will never feel responsible enough and I will never feel masculine enough, no matter how much of each of those things that I actually create in my life, helps me so much to understand that that's just my human's wiring. It's not the actual truth. It's not my source speaking. It's just the code from society. I hope that's the right page. Okay, yeah. It's very outdated code. The work I'm doing at the moment is to show little Bobby that he's safe to feel and need, and also be a goddess. The goddess is what I call my connection to source. If you go check out my art in the gallery, you'll see and feel that connection. So Mum left me to look after my sister, to go and live with a man when we were still adolescents. I had a dependent at 18, my sister, and I've basically been self-sacrificing since. So I've had dependents since I was 18. I've been that responsible human, putting my needs aside since I was 18. And I'm in the first phase. That's what all this work is. I'm in the first phase of going, I can have my own needs be a priority. And it's terrifying. I've literally got, and it's terrifying written down. So I'm gradually reconnecting to source, though, finally. I've cried so much this week preparing to give this talk because I remembered how beautiful I am as source. So I've been so disconnected to that, and the goddess shines in me very brightly at the moment. I'm just not totally grounded in it yet. Okay, to me, source is a feminine energy, and when I surrender to it, I get to be my own mother. Frida and Terry's voices fade, and the code that they left, fade away, and I'm left with the love and safety for my masculine. So that is a weird sentence. When I surrender to source, I get to be my own mother. I kind of like that, okay? Because if I get to be my own mother, I get to decide what's important. It's a beautiful line. When I let the glorious goddess speak in me, speak to my innocent child, they just fucking love each other. I even spent a weekend last month, singing all of Sade's music, which featured in my previous relationship, from my feminine to my own masculine. So I was singing, it was so good. It was the weirdest experience, but the love was palpable. It was amazing. Instead of having his needs ignored, little Bobby could feel the goddess finally showing up and holding him. It felt so silly to do, but yeah, I'm gonna keep on doing it. So that's hack number 4. I just did a weird thing that was really uncomfortable for me, but it was amazing. So I test that feedback loop and go back and do it more because it felt great, and it still feels great. Sing love songs to yourself, I swear. So hack number 4. Find loving ways to communicate with your human. So we all have a human that we're going to be for the rest of our lives. Find loving ways to communicate with it. I would not have believed that singing love songs to my humans would have been a loving way to communicate with it, but it is. That's what works for my human. Our job is to figure out what works for our own humans. Once we start to tune into our loving voice and stream between source and our innocent child, everything falls into place around it. So once we start to tune into our loving voice and stream between source and our innocent child, everything falls into place around it. All of the suffering we were creating fades because we are now acting on our true needs and feelings, which is actually what makes us happy. Acting on our true needs and feelings is actually what makes us happy. Instead of hoping for happiness, we finally get to feel happy in the actual present moment. So how the fuck do we find ways to communicate lovingly with our human? The easiest way to show us that we already know how to do this is to ask ourselves what we would do if a friend was suffering and how we'd hold space for others. So if I ask the question, I want some audience participation here. What are the ways you would already hold space for others to show them it's safe for them to open up? Anyone just shout it out?
Eye-gazing.
Yeah. Be present with them.
Listening non-judgmentally.
Yeah.
Just being there.
Yeah. So showing up for them and showing them they're safe and that they're held and that you're with them, basically. It's a very simple thing. I've got written here, understand, accept, forgive, encourage, support. And they're 5 just really direct lines to feeling held. Imagine how we feel when someone does that for us, or when we do it for someone. Both roles feel great. So when we hold space for ourselves, we get the best of both worlds. I'm suggesting that you be understanding, accepting, forgiving, encouraging and supportive of your own human, like you would another human. And it's so simple. Once you start, it's weird when you start doing it. It is really weird, but once you actually get in flow with it, it becomes your normal. It becomes your baseline. You just build this functional relationship with your human. Okay. We've got all that. We got all that too. Oh, okay. So the things that I'm talking about here, speaking with your human in a loving way is the core practice of most spiritual systems and is also the basis of most psychological systems. Psychology would call this reparenting. So you're just sitting down and being a better adult than the one that you needed as a kid. So hack 1, 2, 3, and 4 are universal foundations for most healthy human practices. I've given you really basic. This is why our brains work this way. Let's befriend them. Let's try and understand them. Let's try and figure out what they actually need. I've got another note here saying, do family of origin work with a therapist. It's so much easier to actually understand what happened to that little human that you didn't even know was a human at the time. With the aid of therapy and psychedelics, I can get out of the way of myself and give myself love in all the parts of me that still feel shame. It's beautiful, gut-wrenching, rewarding work. And it's made my human experience so much more bearable. So I've got a note here to just remind myself to talk about my toddler. Okay. This guy. So he lives in me. I'm this giant, staunch, 110 kilo human. This little human lives in me. That innocence is in me. And I choose to carry it proudly. Like, this is my proudest treasure, is having little Bobby live inside me. Oh, yes. So I treat my human like he's a toddler. Imagine you've got a 2-year-old with you coming everywhere who's got lots of feelings and is overstimulated and doesn't know what he wants, and he's got to ask it really patient questions, lots of them, until you get clear answers. So for the next hacks to be useful, we need to agree that we cause most of our own suffering by believing shit that doesn't serve us. It's pretty straightforward so far, yeah? We need to agree to question the shit that doesn't serve us and decide what we actually want to believe. To me, that is the basis of healing, self-awareness, and understanding. It's really straightforward stuff. But we don't get taught it in our society, unfortunately. We get taught that the human rules and that we don't have access to source. So hack 1, share your suffering. Plus hack 2, question everything other humans taught you. Plus hack 3, figure out what your childhood led you to believe is fundamentally wrong with your human. And then hack 4, learn to listen to your human in a loving voice. To me, those things literally come together, and it's just basic healing. It's a very simple, direct path to healing. So I just need a drink. It's so dry. Hack 5 is you're this human for the rest of your life, so you might as well build a loving relationship with its feelings. And I'm highlighting that word again, feelings. We're taught to confuse thoughts and feelings, and I'm highlighting feelings as emotions. I'm happy, sad, angry, furious, frustrated, okay? These are the things that we're taught if we push them down, we'll be loved. And I'm saying bringing them forwards is what helps us feel loved. So you're this human for the rest of your life. You might as well build a loving relationship with its feelings. Society's code says thoughts are more useful than feelings, but again, that's very dated code. There's so many layers of thinking to wade through before we feel our human's actual emotions. That's what I'm doing. That's the work I'm doing at the moment. But that's what hack 1 to 5 are for, navigating the thinking to the feelings. So I'm such a master thinker. I have a very adept brain. It can adjust to every situation, but I'm stunted emotionally because I've spent so much time in my brain. So I've had to, as an adult, learn to actually understand, develop language around, really learn to relate to my emotional experience. And I think this is part of the code, is we're not taught to be emotional beings. We are naturally emotional beings, but we're taught to suppress our emotions so that we'll be accepted by the herd. Again, you're this human for the rest of your life. You might as well build a loving relationship with its feelings. To me, feelings are pure, clean signals when we don't disturb them with our thoughts. When we really connect with them, yeah. They're like road markers from our human to give us feedback on our choices. Our feelings steer us towards our choices that feel the way we need to. To me, it's our masculine that focuses on goals with feelings, and our feminine that safely surrenders to them and lets them guide us. I'm going to say that again. I'm not speaking about manly and ladily. I'm speaking masculine energetically and feminine energetically. And this is the definition for me. It's our masculine that focuses on goals with feelings, and our feminine that safely surrenders to them and lets them guide us. In this case, I would be saying my masculine is my mind and my feminine is my heart or source. My goal is to harmonize those energies in whatever way works in my human. I've got written there, the masculine is my relationship to my mind, my thoughts, my actions, and the feminine is my capacity to embrace my human's feelings and needs. If I give my feelings and needs over to my mind instead of actually feeling them, they still run on the dated code passed on to me. So I was trained to process all of my feelings through my mind instead of through my heart. And that means that they get filtered through all of the society's dated code. So when I'm looking at my feelings, I'm telling myself I shouldn't have them because they don't fit the picture that I'm supposed to fit into. Bear with me. Okay. When I let the goddess in me mother little Bobby, instead she tells him that all feelings are beautiful and that they're here to guide him, and that lets me surrender into my, here comes the tears. That lets me surrender into experiencing them without the noise of my thoughts. And this is my current work. This is what I'm currently retraining myself to be able to do, is to just experience my feelings without the noise of my thoughts. And it's hard work at 50. So that's why I say work with a therapist while you're young. Do the work, trust me. Okay, I'm deeply wounded. Hang on. Okay. So I've just ended a 12-year relationship, and instead of rebounding, I'm doing my inner work alone, and it's a really different place for me. So my poor human doesn't trust me with feeling yet. There's a strong resistance to still expressing myself. So I take myself back to hack one. This gets cute. Share our suffering, and I ask hurt little me to try and share his suffering with me. I encourage him and reassure him that it's safe now, and to be honest and just see how things work out. I remind him that it's just us here, that it's okay and we're safe. And he squeaked out 3 words, horny, lonely, and sad. And I giggled as I praised him for his honesty. We sat quietly for a bit, and I asked him if we can rise. It's hilarious, isn't it? Straight to it. The human condition. We sat quietly for a bit, and then I asked if we can write some feelings down, and all of this flowed out. So this is me writing to myself in my journal, okay? How am I feeling? Lonely, horny, sad, secure, strong, sore, insecure, weak, happy, fulfilled, frustrated, empowered, disappointed, relieved, confused, enchanted, divine, connected, detached, worried, smitten, contented, angry, relieved again, and validated. All of those things, as I felt them come through me, I literally felt all of them and could see how I was suppressing each of them just to cope, just to stay in my mind instead of actually be destroyed by my feelings suddenly. As soon as they came through, they were no longer destructive. Sorry, I'm back in the journal now. I'm encouraging myself, so I say, good start. I can literally feel all of those, but play them down like they don't matter. So I'm relating to my human there. They are my inner compass telling me how I'm traveling on the directions I choose. These feelings, this is still me in my journal, these feelings are what helps me interface with my needs. When I look outside, my needs are pretty simple. When I look inside, my needs are pretty simple. My needs. safety to express my feelings, regulated nervous system, connection, intimacy, sensual expression, sexual expression, creative expression, and to simply live in each moment in flow and connected to love. That's my favorite journal entry so far this year. It's so straightforward and direct from the hard part of the work that I was doing into how easy it actually is when you do it. My work is largely about reconnecting. Oh, hang on. Okay, I'll go back a step, sorry. It still cracks me up that I felt ashamed, that I felt horny, lonely, and sad, because all humans have those feelings, and we all feel some shame about them. It's a good measure of how far from source I currently am inside. So having shame about such basic shit really showed me how far I've actually moved away from my core, and how simple it actually is to come home in myself and just reconnect with your actual feelings as they are. So my work is largely reconnecting to source at the moment, so it can guide me instead of the outdated code. I've got here, one of my favorite ways is hack 6. I love this too. You'll get to laugh at me more. Ask your human leading questions that move towards meeting a need. I can't stress this one enough, okay? It's the biggest, simplest game changer that I've ever used in my personal life. Ask your human leading questions that move towards meeting a need. We've got it written here. This will be fun. You'll get to laugh at my human here. So this is a clear look into the healthier parts of my operating system and how I discern whether a direction is actionable yet or still needs processing. These two questions are pure empowerment if we can answer them from the heart. What do I want more of? With an emphasis on the two words more of. And how can I move towards providing it for myself? So this is a really independent, non-attached way of processing your feelings and figuring out what you need. Pairing these two together helps filter through the heart. So I'm going to say it again. What do I want more of? How can I move towards providing it for myself? If I can't measure what I want as more of, then I'm still moving away from something, attachment or fear-driven. That is such a simple sentence, but I want you to just hear it, okay? If I'm not, where am I? If I can't measure what I want as more of, then I'm still moving away from something, attachment or fear-driven. If I can't provide it for myself, then it's not really a need, it's a want, okay? Sometimes an actionable answer takes a while. So with horny, lonely, sad, my human said, more sex, that's what I want. Great sex was the validation that I received in prioritizing my previous partner's needs over my own. So I wasn't as convinced that was a solution. It sounds convincing. What I did was look at the evidence, and we agreed more sex was not the actionable answer we were seeking. So I got an answer that was more of, but it sounded like my brain. So I questioned his belief. We just had the most amazing sex for a decade, and we're still horny, lonely, and sad. Come on, what has been missing for you most of your life? What else do we want more of? So this is still me speaking to me, and then naturally tears flowed out. It was connection, safety, vulnerability, and intimacy. So I'm going to say those words again. Connection, safety, vulnerability, and intimacy. I've got an obvious question here. Does anyone else feel a need for connection, safety, vulnerability, and intimacy? Do we remember how we make connection? We share our suffering. And that's where the little me goes, oh, we have to actually do the talk, don't we? It's like, I didn't want to do this at first, and I agreed to just share the work that I'm currently doing instead. So here I am, sharing my suffering en masse, and yeah, it is amazing. Thank you for holding space for my very human suffering. I really appreciate it. So if we look at hack 1, 2, and 3 are kind of us moving through what our humans were taught to think. Yeah, okay. So 1, 2, and 3, we're moving from what we think to what we feel. 4, 5, and 6 are helping us tune into those feelings and needs and then start to act on them. Hack 7, reclaim and redefine everything with your own truths. Yeah, we're good. As we go through the previous hacks, we are rewiring our operating system. Our beliefs are literally evolving as we do this work. This is my favorite thing to do. It's literally what I love doing with other humans. Once we accept and embrace our suffering, we see it as what connects us all. We get to redefine literally every aspect of our lives. To me, that's what truly living is about, choosing for ourselves and to make our human experience more ours to enjoy. So I've gotten written here in bright words, source code. This is literally connecting with your own source code. So source is spirit or your heart or whatever you want to call the electricity that drives your body. This is your own personal code, which is the same code that everybody actually has. We're just stuck in our heads. One way I do hack 7 is by taking words that feel uncomfortable inside and updating their meaning, sometimes many, many times. This helps me connect to those meanings when I use those words. So I've reclaimed so many words and just gone, you know, that thing that they used to say that it doesn't feel good to me, I want to make it mean something good to me so that when I say that word, it actually feels like empowering instead of disempowering. First word I've got here is purpose, and I want you to just hold on to that word from the previous generation's code. It's really heavily loaded. You're supposed to have some really deep purpose in your life. It's supposed to be about money or status somehow, and your purpose in life is whatever you choose it to be. Hang on a sec. Okay. So your purpose in life can actually be whatever you choose to be. And I know we all know this, but we don't actually believe it by default because the code is so convincing that it has to be something that's somehow world-changing and you need to be important. Figure out what your human likes to do and give them loads of time to enjoy doing it. There, you found your purpose. I'm going to say that again because it's a massive part of my life. Figure out what your human likes to do and give them loads of time to enjoy doing it. There, you found your purpose. Again, I can't emphasize how simple that actually is. So we're taking the load of purpose and we're redefining and reclaiming it for something that feels right for us, that is empowering. Responsibility. And this is one of my main wounds. So responsibility is like the thing that I will never have enough of. So for me, I needed to do a lot of work on that to reclaim it. Responsibility is everyone else's needs come first. That's what the code told me. And my version is that me looking into my life and seeing all the ways that I've betrayed or let down my own values is my responsibility. And I don't actually own anything beyond that. That's society's code. Making choices that better reflect what I can see I've done to let down my own values. So simple, very linear. I've got here love. Fuck, who knows with this one. My current definition is the time we share feels nurturing. So try that on. While you're at Dragon, you're feeling love. You know that. And to me, I've defined it currently. It will change again. That the time we're sharing feels nurturing. It applies to my alone time with my human as well. So I spend a lot of time alone and it feels very nurturing. So I know I'm loving myself at that time. Healing. Ooh, I'm so broken, I need to be fixed. So that's the version of healing that we're taught by society. The version of healing that I work with is the lifelong process of growing comfortable and familiar with the source of our suffering. Healing is just something that we do if we want to live better. Selfish. Don't be selfish. Look after everybody else. Selfish now just means that I'm doing something for myself, for my human, no guilt, no shame. So selfish is actually an empowering thing. You should be selfish. Curiosity is the thing that killed the cat. It's a dastardly thing, okay? So that's society's code. Reality for me is that curiosity is innocence. Curiosity is awe. I'm nearly in tears there. It's so lovely. Okay, curiosity is the purest link to our creativity and the most genuine way we can connect with other humans. Curiosity is humility to me. Creativity is so much more than art. It's the ability to follow our curiosity and surrender into the process. Vulnerability is threatened or in danger in the code. In source code, It's the ability to follow our curiosity and surrender to the process. So vulnerability is sparking your intuition into curiosity and moving forwards with it, even though you're terrified. Surrender, big word for me this week. Defeated or giving up. Source code, trusting our hearts, trusting our lives, trusting our fellow humans with our feelings so we don't have to blindly follow the outdated code. Oh, we're nearly there. Ooh, would anyone like to share quickly words that they've reclaimed or redefined? Okay. Yeah.
So the word gay,
Yep.
like, I don't really identify as that anymore because I'm just human.
Yeah.
But, like, to me, the word gay is a feeling.
Okay.
Like, gay was put as like a sexual identity or
Yep.
whatever. Now I've kind of like reclaimed it as a feeling. Like everyone can, to me, that gay feeling is beyond happy. It's that really like, oh my god, yeah. Like that's the feeling of gay, and it's a feeling that everyone can reach. But it's not like a identity to me anymore.
I think your gay is my goddess.
Yeah.
Like I was spectacular last night on the dance floor, and I
right.
just magnetized. People were just drawn to me, and I was completely immersed in my feminine.
Yeah. That's
Does that line up?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back that. That's
Cool.
proper reclaiming, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hack 8, find other humans who are also redefining. Look around you, who are also redefining and reclaiming, and watch them become your human family. Dragon truly feels like my family. Oh, thank you all again. Through the space we all hold together, I heal and grow here every year. It's so beautiful. I've got friends who are doing this work too, and we share our parallel experiences often outside of Dragon. So many of my friends are here, and I know that the massive push I give this talk will reach far beyond the benefit I got from writing it and sharing it. So that's most of the actual work. It's very linear, and as I said before, it aligns with most basic psychological and spiritual practices. What I've shared here today isn't some clever Rob thing. This is what most people do who desire to live a fuller life and they end up doing. Doing it with others makes the work grow very differently. Sweet. We're all traveling in the same tunnel, shining light down that tunnel. Working with others actually helps me encourage myself to trust humanity more. So finding other people who are also doing this work just has rekindled, reignited my trust in humanity. And that's me. Okay. Oh. The beauty of surrender and connection is what has had me crying all week writing this talk. I've been grieving past loss of all of the love that I deserved but didn't give myself, and remembering to love how I used to love the way I used to before I was taught to fear. So, okay, that. Whoa, okay. As I was putting the talk together, I had lots of tears, and they were oscillating between crying, grieving, and laughing. And it's this really beautiful tipping point in myself where I no longer felt sane or needed to feel sane. I was actually allowing whatever feelings were coming up to just flow through and just experiencing them, the happiness and the sadness, as if they were very similar energy, just processing. So rather than evaluating my feelings, they were just happening, and I was just surrendered and supported. It was really uncomplicated, and for me that's huge. Yeah, ooh, okay. Most of the info here came from, if I'm really honest, walks in the bush with DMT over the last fortnight. It's like I'd come back with a different talk each time because of that. Okay, so I've got a couple of stories that I'll just trim, and we'll go straight to the part that's been buckling me every time. The 9th and simplest hack is 2 letters that make up my favorite word. Us. Okay, so I just want to sit on that word for a moment. Us. It is the lack of disconnection. It's no separateness anymore. We are us. Whoever we're looking at in our scope, that's us. So however big you're able to make your sphere of us is how big your love expands out into the world. It's such a simple, pure, little, beautiful word. It's uncomplicated, no fluff. It's the energy we feel when we connect with other animals or humans. It's the shortest, sweetest, most perfectly uncomplicated word that my human knows. It's a simple mantra I use to remind my human, with all its horny, lonely, sad shame, that every one of us is actually just another me living in a different human body. Suffering is universal. We are actually in this together. Us is the most direct anchor I have to source. Yeah, it's very direct. I've never shared this, but when I get lost at a doof, I chant us in my mind. So I ground myself because I feel like I'm somehow lost in a loop or whatever. I just use us to ground myself in the community that I'm actually held by the whole time. So, ooh. Give me a second. Okay. This is a little bit of a confusing jump. So this got written in towards the end of the talk, but it's actually probably the most single valuable thing that I can share as far as my own work is. So bear with me. I'll try and explain it as best I can. My human had a revelation one day that the adult that my innocent child always needed is actually my innocent child. I want to say that again. The adult that my innocent child actually needed was actually my innocent child. So the values that I want my adult to uphold are my innocent child's values. They're not some society code. They're literally, that is who I need to be, the adult in my life. Those values, that purity, that untainted code. Nearly there. Everything I thought about my inner child changed, and I realized that the innocence in me is not some wounded kiddo, but my boundless spirit source. The values I reparented myself with are my spirit's values, or my inner child is actually my spirit. So we often think of our inner child as some wounded little kiddo, who's been hurt by life, and I'm connecting my inner child to the limitless. That's like, he's slightly wounded, but not very, So he still has his innocence and his source. He's still very connected to source there. So I'm reparenting myself past all the code that's been embedded back to him and saying, you are spirit, guide me. And then there's this like internal dynamic that's self-fulfilling. My spirit, my heart, actually. Yeah, my spirit, my heart, my innocent child is actually the guide my human has always needed. All I need to do, and this is the key. So that was a little bit fluffy then, wasn't it? It's like, wow, my spirit is my inner child, is my parent, it's whatever you want it to be. You just need to give access of all of your how to human experience to that voice. So whichever voice it is that you want to listen to inside you, whatever you want to call it, you've got lots of years being this human already. Like, I used to look like that, but I look like this now because of the years of experience of being this human. And I'm starting to get good at being this human. Not quite there yet, but I'm nearly there. So the key to that last one is give it access to all the years of how to human experience that you have. I can't tell you how simple that actually has made my life. Understanding that I'm not trying to access some internal value as a parent of myself. It's literally the same energy. It just needs access to all of the experience that I've actually got of navigating through situations and actually actioning decisions. Oh, okay. So that's roughly the lot. I want to hand over to Jen very soon. She's going to ground us in country and more before, we close off and head into Welcome to Country. I've got one parting, so this is just a little expansion on us. And it's something that's very personal for me. And it's a very short sentence, a little bit longer than us. The one in all is the all in one. So we have lots of beliefs, lots of scriptures, lots of doctrines passed on to us. This is a really pure, simple stream that whatever you want to call God is in you and you are in God. The one in all is the all in one. It's a little brainworm that can sit very comfortably in you and feed you. Ooh, I've got here, thank you for holding space with me again today. This has been really wonderful. That has been really wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Very happily hand over to you, Jen. Okay.
You made it. That's the last of my responsibility for the weekend.